Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Visual. Thank you for taking the time to spare an hour with us today to go through our Intranet, get my teeth in, our Intranet Accelerator offering that we are launching today. So I'm just going to introduce myself, Jonathan Holmes. I'm an external account manager for Visual. We've got Mike Owen, who's the brains behind the operation, the technical and product lead for SharePoint within Visual. And we've also got Molly Sutton on the call, who's our marketing executive at Visual as well. So any questions, please feel free to pop them in the conversation window and we'll deal with them there and then. Alternatively, you can email us afterwards and the email address will come up shortly. I'm ahead of myself on the slides. So any enquiries you have afterwards, obviously email us enquiries@visual. Please keep your phones on mute, and we are recording today's webcast and we'll send a link of it out following on from the call. So I believe some of you know who Visual are and some of you don't, so just to give you a bit of insight as to the type of organisation we are based out of Stafford with a lot of remote workers, employing 160 or so staff, specialising in the Microsoft stack, the Microsoft technologies. So from Office 365 through to System Center, EMS, so all the cloud-based technologies, all the on-prem based technologies. The only thing we don't really deal with is any of the ERP type solutions that Microsoft offer, but CRM, SharePoint, all those kind of things. So our vision as an organisation is to ensure that organisations leverage the best use of the Microsoft investment that they've made. We appreciate that Microsoft licenses are not the cheapest product to buy in the world, and there's lots of features and enhancements and capabilities within those products that organisations typically don't use. So where we work with organisations on a transformational front is to look at the strategic objectives of that organisation, whether that's increasing revenue, reducing risk, and align the solutions to those particular work streams and those strategic objectives of the business. And that comes through our consulting team. So in our consulting team, we're set up very much along the business alignment, so where we work with strategic consulting, the engagement management and adoption of Microsoft technologies, and the overarching architecture piece. And then within the technology streams, we have a number of solution-aligned groups that are subject matter experts in their own particular field. So in this particular case, Mike is a SharePoint expert, and we have a number of different Mikes around our business that specialize in Azure, Exchange, Dynamics CRM, and custom application development, amongst many others. And then aligned alongside this, we have our managed services team. So once solutions are deployed within an organization, the managed services team are able to either pick up the skills gap until an organization has their own staff in-house that have the ability and technical knowledge to continue to support those solutions. Or alternatively, we offer lots of proactive support as well, and sort of tier 1, tier 2 help desk type support. We use our own versions of System Center. We have our own versions of proactive monitoring, so that before any before any cases are raised with your own internal help desk, they may have already been raised with ours and fixed before your staff get into work at 8:30 in the morning. Our staff are in through the night, being able to fix those. And we also have a few solutions which are sector aligned as well. So we have some criminal justice software solutions, we have a retail software solution, and we also have some educational solutions that are all sort of vertically aligned and fix specific strategic needs within those types of organizations. Apologies, my slide transition is very slow. So where we lead with transformation, we typically approach 3 pillars. So we'll start in the middle with Empower, end user computing. So that is, working alongside desktop replacement programs and desktop application upgrades to enhance the user experience for users within any organization. Alongside that, we have our optimized service vision, which is looking at the array of cloud and on-premise based technologies that are available, either to move or replace data centers that you already have within your organization, or also to look at additional features and benefits that may be available, such as enhanced backup solutions in Azure, obviously Active Directory services, and making sure they're robust and resilient across organizations. And then finally, our connected business proposition, which brings together all these strings of work and allows people, whether they are employees, customers, citizens, clients of yours, to enable the right data to help them make decisions quickly and effectively, and allowing them access to some of their own data and more self-service capabilities within your systems. So I'm going to hand over to Mike Owen. Mike's going to pick up with the agenda of today and then talk through the thinking behind our Intranet Accelerator and give you a real-time demonstration of how it all works. So demo gods be with you, Mike, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, first off, can everyone see the slide deck okay? Can everyone hear the audio okay? If you can't, can you just put a little message in the message window in Skype? Okay, so assuming we're all okay. So my name is Mike Owen. I'm the business productivity lead at Visual. I've worked with SharePoint for many years, but sort of really specialised in the last 10 years or so, sort of dealing with all versions of SharePoint from the 2001 version of the product right through to 2016 and SharePoint Online, everything in between. So the purpose of today's webinar is to really talk about intranets, what they are, what issues we have with them, and how we think that we can help you sort of jumpstart your intranet. So from a purpose of an intranet, I normally describe intranets as they're supposed to be rather the single authoritative source of information for your organization. We should have all of our published documents available in the intranet. We should have all of the latest news, latest events within the intranet. It should also be accessible to all people within the organization. We don't really want areas of the intranet that are kind of hidden or only really accessible to certain people. That's not really the idea. We want to be open. We want to kind of break down those barriers so that we can really engage with our organization. So the three key parts to be truly effective with an intranet. So we need to have content, but we need that content to be up to date. We need to be able to have some kind of automated review cycle in that, so we don't have old or stale content. We need to be able to pass communication messages, whether we do that through news or whether we actually start to integrate social media platforms into it to make it give it a more modern feel to the internet. And thirdly, people always want to be able to perform activities within the intranet. Now, whether that's booking a holiday or booking sorting out expenses, whatever the task may be, those are the three sort of areas that we normally sort of look for in an intranet. So from an issues perspective then, we go and talk to a lot of organizations about their intranets and sort of how that it's not really being adopted. We can't find information properly, and the situation normally is that these intranets are created in the hope that people are going to read the content that's hosted on there. But unfortunately, it normally ends up being a bit of a signposting portal, normally because the content's a bit stale, it's old, I can't find the right content maybe. Maybe the search mechanism doesn't work, or the navigation's too complicated. So we really only sort of use the intranet to sort of click through a set of links in order to get to the area that I want. So I need to book my holiday. I know I've got to go to HR in order to do that. So we talk about ways in which we can improve that situation. So whether your intranet is controlled by a centralized team, like a comms or marketing team, or whether we want to decentralize the content ownership to areas of the business who really understand that area. So for example, we wouldn't ask the comms team maybe to put together the latest expenses policy, because they're not finance people. They don't understand the subject matter as well as the finance team do. So to really make the intranet more, to help it be more up to date, to keep the content fresh, we talk about decentralizing that control. We still allow marketing to sort of have an overall approval on the intranet, but we want the content to come from different areas. The other issue that we typically find with intranets is that they read very much like a broadsheet newspaper. So regardless of my location or my job role, I will see absolutely everything that the intranet has to offer. I'll see all of those key messages, which, yes, they're certainly important, but then I'll see everything that I'm probably not interested in. And typically when we ask people, how much of the content do you actually view on the homepage? It's normally a very, very small percentage. They just look at the key messages, and then they're off using the signposting sort of functions to get to the right activities that they want to be involved in. So we really need to look at ways in which we can personalize content to individuals. We also need to make sure that if we want to locate content, we can do it in a number of ways. So typically we find that users are either going to be navigators, I want to click through things to get to where I want to be, or users are going to be search orientated, because when we're at home, our experience of search is set by, well, our expectations rather are set by the likes of Google or Bing, where they put a lot of emphasis or a lot of effort into search engine optimization. So normally search fails within a business just because we don't put that effort in, or we don't put enough metadata into the background to help the search engine understand what the content is. So we decided that although we do deliver end-to-end intranets, sort of very customized intranets for organizations, we find that a lot of it's not always the best fit, because it's quite an expensive engagement, it's quite a long project, it's quite a drawn out period of time to sort of make sure that we get absolutely everything right. So we decided, well, why not come up with a packaged framework that will enable us to deploy all of the requested features and functionality to an organization in a very quick sort of amount of time. So we've put together this product which we're badging as the Intranet Accelerator. So it's all out-of-the-box SharePoint functionality. There's very little script that has been added into it. It's very much sort of based on the concepts of reusing content within the intranet rather than having lots of duplicated information. We've also designed it with using multiple devices in mind. So in the demo I'll show you both the PC-based view and also a mobile view of the site. So in terms of what we actually get within the Intranet Accelerator, so obviously there's going to be a home page, but the home page is dynamic in the way that it consumes the content within the intranet. It's only going to show you the latest information that's available. So we have the idea of news within an intranet, and a lot of organisations that we work with say, well, our intranet's very text-based, very text-heavy, and it's not visually appealing. So how can we make news more interesting? How can we display it in different ways? So we like this idea of a news carousel, some sort of rotating banners which show a very visually appealing sort of display of important news. We then also wanted to address the activity side of intranets, so provide some way of having a maintainable list of links to different activities. So I want to book holiday, I want to search for a policy, or whatever the activity is. We then have other areas where we're grouping slightly less important news. Maybe this is social news and events from around the organisation. We still want to know, for example, that there's going to be downtime within IT for maintenance, perhaps. But this is maybe a regular message. It's not important news in the fact that maybe there's a new policy coming. Maybe we are, as a company, we're restructuring. So the really important news is highlighted, whereas the more standard, more mundane news, if you will, has a lesser importance sort of visually, but it's still on the home page. We then wanted to sort of show some way of highlighting documents. So I'll show you where we implemented Document Center, a single location for documents within the intranet, but using search aggregation techniques and using metadata that is attached to those documents, we can tag those documents as being important or spotlight documents. So it will raise the profile of that document up onto the home page. So if we had a piece of news that announced a change in policy or a new policy, we could also make the appropriate policy a spotlight document, so it's really easy for people to find. We've then got various ways in which we can integrate social media into the environment. I mean, typically the easiest way is using embed links from things like Yammer or Twitter, but when talking to users within organizations, you say, well, does your organization use social media? And they say, well, we think we've got a Twitter feed, but we never actually access it a lot of the time. So we find people want to be able to see what's being said about the organization. What are they telling the outside world? What messages are being conveyed? So we can raise the profile of those social media feeds by placing them within the intranet, maybe even on the home page, because we really want to raise the profile of it. And then because the home page, like all of the content within the Intranet Accelerator, is based on standard SharePoint functionality, we can then start to add additional content or apps in line with our organizational requirements. So within the News Center, we've built in the common requests that the organizations want from a news functionality. So the idea of being able to create news articles in a very standardized, consistent way, where we can make them media rich by adding in videos or images if we want to, but we always want to have a consistent look and feel to them. Maybe we don't want the exact layout, maybe we want sort of large images sort of as a banner across the top, or maybe we want a smaller one just in the right hand corner. We've got a number of layouts that we can use, but they still enforce some sort of consistency in the way that the page is displayed, but also in terms of the metadata that is available in the background. Because the second thing that people will ask about is, well, how can we categorize this news? I don't want everything to be of the same importance. But likewise, I also want to be able to say, well, if I go to a certain department, show me the news that is relevant to that particular department. I just want to see that information. So we can categorize the news using metadata that is attached to the individual articles. So this leads us to be able to covered it a little bit already, the idea of aggregating specific content for specific reasons. Now, in the demo that we've put together, we are just using departments, but there are many sort of scenarios in which case we might want location-specific news. For example, we work with many police forces or sort of ambulance services, things like that. And we might want to say, well, show me news for particular regions within the area that force or service covers. So again, that's using the categorization, the metadata, and using the search aggregation techniques to actually surface the right information into the right place, but without having to actually duplicate any of this content. We can then also provide the ability for users to say, well, actually I want to see all of the information. I want to have a visual display of every news article that we've created, and I want to be able to sort it by date. I want to be able to go and find maybe an old piece of news, some archived news. For example, maybe we did a charity drive last year, and I want to sort of figure out, well, how much did we raise last year? And how much have we raised this year? Have we improved? Have we not done so well? So we can use the search to go and sort of interrogate the news and then search and filter for it. So in order to provide those authoritative published documents for the organization, we've created a document center. Now, the reason we use a document center and emphasize the authoritative and approved documents is that we see a lot of organizations use their intranet almost as a collaboration or drafting area in order to create the policies that they then show and publish on the intranet. Now, unless those are secured by permissions, we then have the situation where users can be searching for a policy and have multiple versions. They might even be seeing draft versions of the policy, and if we're then quoting that or relying on that as the truth, then we can get into quite awkward situations. So we always emphasize the fact that the intranet should be authoritative, approved information. In terms of documents, maybe we should actually only be ever showing one version. Maybe we don't even have version control on our approved documents internally, just because the version should be the most up-to-date version. I don't really care the fact that it's version 3 of the policy, I just care that it's the most up-to-date version of that policy. So we can use a single location and we can use SharePoint features. So you may be aware of a feature called the Send To feature, where we can send documents to a location, such as a document center, in order to build that into an approval workflow or publishing mechanism. So depending on our content editor model, whether we want the document center to be centrally owned by one team, or whether we want distributed content owners, we can change the configuration of the Intranet Accelerator to have multiple document libraries or a single target document library. And we use the metadata to then differentiate which document library the content needs to go into. For example, if I publish an HR policy, I just want that to be visible within an HR library. But using the search mechanism, I can still have an overall aggregated view of all documents, regardless of department. So when we upload those documents, we'll be asked to actually tag the documents in certain ways. We need to provide that metadata sort of in order for the documents to be stored in the right place, and also to make it more easily discoverable when we're searching. the latest version of SharePoint, sorry, from SharePoint 2013 onwards, we had very easy ways of creating search refiners in the same way that you get with commercial websites, where maybe I'm trying to buy a pair of trousers or shoes and I want to just find an appropriate size and appropriate style. So be able to refine results very quickly in just a couple of clicks. And because we've got the metadata there, we can aggregate this information. I don't need to have a document uploaded in multiple places. I just have a single location for all of my authoritative documents. And then we also have ways of navigating this this document center. I mean, I might not know exactly what I'm looking for, so I can use search. But if I do, and I just want to browse all of the documents available for a particular department, well then we have the capability to do that quite easily. So, a shop front. We refer to it as shop front because it's basically a kind of the brochureware side of your department or your team or your location. The idea of, well, who are we? What do we do? But then also being able to surface content from the other areas of the intranet. So we have our news center for all of our news. We have an events calendar, and we have the document center. So even though the shop fronts themselves don't really store any information aside from the departmental events calendar, we can aggregate that content that is relevant to that particular team, department or location into a single view of this page. We also then use defined page layouts so that whenever I go to a particular department, it doesn't matter if I've never been to that department before, because every department will have the same layout. I always want to be able to sort of have that intuitive sort of familiar feel to the intranet, so that I can always find things quite easily. I know where I'm looking on a particular department in order to find, for example, the team leader, or where to find the team members for that department. And then, as we've emphasized, there'll be a single location for all the information. So aggregated into a single location, it's going to save you time and effort. I'm not having to look around at different sources to try and find that whole view of what a department actually does. The Search Center, with Office 365 in particular, you get a Search Center straight out of the box, but this is a Search Center that has been created specifically for the Intranet Accelerator. So there are the refiners that are available within, based on the metadata within the documents and news articles are built into the search pages. We've then got the customized templates in order to make sure that we can still use search when we're on a mobile device. The search verticals that we'll see are currently in this demo. They are the out-of-the-box search verticals. So we'll still see the kind of search everything, search people, the familiar search experience that you would expect. Okay, so I'm going to flip across to the Intranet Accelerator. So this is the demo that we've put together, where so we've geared it around a fictional coffee business in this case. So we can see we've got this rotating banner across the top to really highlight important news within the environment. Because this is based on, this environment's actually hosted within Office 365, we've surfaced videos that we have in our Office 365 video portal. If you have on-premise SharePoint, we can still host videos within it. They just, they wouldn't be, well, they wouldn't have the same rendering capabilities that you have with Office 365 within the video portal. So the video portal is sort of built in order to enable mobile views of videos. It changes the rendering depending on which device you're watching the video from. I then have my news for that's aggregated, so different types of news. We've got some social news, we've got some department-specific news. We've got an area for our corporate events as well. So there is a corporate events calendar that sits as part of the homepage and not part of an individual department. And then we've got some spotlight documents. So all of the information that is on this page is actually sort of pulled in, aggregated from somewhere else. The only exception really is this corporate events calendar, which is sort of part of the homepage. We've then got a social media feed. So within Visual, we've adopted Yammer quite heavily. So we decided that we'll show a Yammer feed sort of within this location. So it's still just as interactive, and we can still sort of post comments back from within the homepage if we wanted to. We've then also got this I need to drop down. So we're playing around with different ideas in which this could be presented. This could be some sort of flyout if we wanted to. But the requirement here is that I want to do a certain activity. I need to go and book holiday or see my department or whatever the situation is. So let's deal with search straight away. I want to go and search for a policy. So this will just take me through to the search center. In this case, all I've done is pass through a particular search term so I can go and get the latest policies from within the document center. Using the refinements, the metadata, we can then say, well, just show me the HR related policies within the environment, or just show me HR policies that that are by a particular author if we wanted to. So there's different ways of presenting there's different ways of defining what your refiners are going to be, and that's something that we could talk through as part of the engagement. So from a news perspective, if I want to sort of click through and have a look at some of the news, this is opening out into our defined template where we've said, well, I want to have a big banner across the top. I want to have certain information like the title and the byline. And if we've got the right permissions, we can then say, well, I need to edit this page. Obviously, everything within an intranet generally should be visible to all people, but only really editable by content owners or by the owners of the intranet. So what we've got here is some metadata that we're enforcing to say, well, this piece of news we're going to associate with the HR department. If we wanted to make it location specific, we could add that in as well. And then what kind of news is it? Department news? Is it social news? And these little tags by the right-hand side refer to the Managed Metadata Service. So the Managed Metadata Service is a way of centralized control to say what values we want to allow in this area. It's the way to enforce your organizational taxonomy. At a very simple level, that could just be your departments and teams within the organization. But at least now we've got a way of providing that consistency. It means we're going to get better search results because I'm not having to think, well, is it abbreviated? Do we only refer to HR, or do we talk about human resources or personnel? And because the Managed Metadata Service has the capability to provide synonyms, I could search by human resources or personnel if I really wanted to, and I could still get HR content back. We then have certain pieces of information that we want to enforce within the template. So the title and the byline in this situation. And then I want to provide a roll-up image. So this roll-up image is what's actually appearing on the home page when we see that scrolling version. And as you can see, all of this, there's no customization apart from the actual layout. So I'm still just using the features that are available out of the box with SharePoint. So for the document center, we might want to look at all the documents and then use refiners to break it down. We might want to look at specific departments and just see the information that the marketing department has to offer. And all of these are sort of very similarly based on the kind of search results. These are queries that are being defined and then built into the pages because I just want to see the information relating to marketing in this instance. And what we have on the homepage for the document center is some automatic results on it. The most popular documents are using the usage stats that are built into search. So the more that I click on, for example, the HR health and safety information, the higher up this particular web part that link will go. As it becomes more popular, its ranking increases. And as we described earlier, the spotlight documents are those documents that we want to actually highlight. We want to say, well, show this information. It's quite important. I want to know about the expenses policy because we've got changes. So highlight that information. I don't really want to have to go and search for it within the relevant team to try and find it. From a department's perspective, we could have some form of sitemap. If we didn't want to just have, I mean, in this scenario, we've only got a few departments in the demo, so it's quite easy to see what we want from the navigation. But if we had a lot of departments and we're working in a more mobile view, maybe we don't want to have to scroll through a lot in order to get to it. So we've reverted this very sort of blocky design for a lot of the Intranet Accelerator layouts in order to make it easier to navigate. So when I go to the IT department, we're going to see a standard page layout. Tell me some information about the IT team, but then also bring forward any of the department news. Well, what's actually happening here is it's promoting all of the company news, the important news, but then also giving me news that would be specific to that department. We also specify who's the team lead, who's head of department. Give me a contact point for that particular team or department. And then we're surfacing documents from the document center, so we're reusing this content, we're not duplicating the documents. And then we've got some events. Now these events are being pulled from a couple of locations. Within each team there is a separate team calendar, but then there's also the corporate events calendar on the home page. So we're pulling events from both those locations. And we haven't really done anything with the team calendar at the moment. Well, other than style it in the same way, it's still the out-of-the-box calendar. We're still using out-of-the-box components. We're just presenting it in a way which is more suitable for an intranet. And with Meet the Team, we want to find out about who is in the team. So we are reusing the information that's held within SharePoint's user profile service. So this is the information all about you as an individual, but this time we're just saying, well, we want to relate it just to the IT team. So clicking through these links will take you to the standard sort of My Site. Because we're in Office 365, this may look different to the My Site experience you get within your organization. But we're just reusing information that's already there. We want to use this as a phone book almost, if you want. So we don't want to have to try and figure out who's the best person to contact. We've got the information there to know. Right. And to prove that this, as Jonathan said, may the demigods be with me, we've also designed this so that it will work well on mobile devices. So because we are a Microsoft partner, we all sort of use Windows phones internally, but this is also sort of works quite happily on iOS devices as well. I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest, if we've tried it out on an Android device, but anyone who uses Android devices by default, we can certainly check that out for you. So what we're going to be seeing now is, well, here's the home page. We've got the same features as we had on the laptop. It's just that now it's formatted into a column. So I can still get to things that I need to do. I can still sort of see videos if I wanted to. I can still get to the latest news. So I want to go and have a look at some information about skydives maybe. So this will then render that particular news article in the mobile format. Yeah? And because we're in a responsively designed view, the actual navigation has changed. So rather than being a spaced out navigation bar, it becomes a drop down that I can scroll through if I wanted to go and look at other information within the environment. So in the same way as with the IT team, this sales team has got some information about the sales team. We've got some department news. We've got a team lead associated, and then we've got more documents and more events for it. So regardless of whether you work from home or in the office, you can still get to your intranet. Obviously, this will depend on if you're on premise, publishing the intranet externally through an appropriate edge device, or if you're using Office 365, you'll just need to have the right credentials to log in and authenticate with the Office 365 service. So, from a configuration perspective, although we've described that this is a packaged offering, okay, so we've already created a load of layouts, we've created the framework in order to sort of get you moving on a new intranet, but we still need to provide configuration options. So branding wise, yes, we can tweak the branding, we can go and sort of play around with the logos and the fonts and the colors. If we really want to sort of change the theme entirely, yes, that is possible, but we don't offer it as part of the packaged engagement at the moment. We then talk through options around the taxonomy. So how do we want our documents and news to be categorized? How do we want departments and teams to be represented? Do we want those within the managed metadata term set or not? How do we want the document center and news center to be configured? Do we just want a single library for all news and a single library for all documents? Or do we actually want multiple libraries for news and multiple libraries for documents to then allow specific permissions for individual departments? This way we can decentralize it. We can sort of reduce the overhead that the comms or marketing team or whoever owns your intranet has by saying, well, we will allow other people to create that content, but they can only affect their own content. We don't want them to be able to edit other people's documents or other people's news. We can then tweak the search configuration. So what are the search refiners that are important within your organization? What are the search verticals that we want? Do we want a specific search just for policies and procedures maybe? And then we also talk through the options of connecting out to social media. Whichever your social media platform of choice is, there's bound to be ways of being able to incorporate that within the Intranet Accelerator framework. So in terms of an engagement, the way we'd approach this is that we'd hold some workshops with you to discuss the configuration options, to decide how best the framework needs to be set up for your organization. We then would quickly document these configuration decisions. We want to make sure that we've got a record of exactly what you want and how the intranet should be deployed. And then we go once we've deployed the configuration, we can then test it to make sure that we've captured the appropriate configuration appropriately, and we then provide some handover to content owners, administrators, whoever it may be. We also deal with the on-site launch support. So because it's a framework, we leave the actual content up to your content owners, your content editors, to be able to fill that in. But we provide on-site support in order to sort of reinforce the handover training that's being provided. And then finally, as standard with all Visual consulting engagements, there is 14-day support via our Visual managed services. So, in summary, the Intranet Accelerator is basically a framework that will enable you to create a very modern-looking intranet in quite a short space of time. Intranet projects don't have to be very, very long, drawn-out projects. This will give you a great starter for 10 without having to sort of heap loads of investment in terms of time and money into the creation of your new intranet. It'll provide that centralized location for all your news and events and published documentation. And if you have a SharePoint environment which you already use for the likes of team sites or collaboration, well, then we can talk about ways in which we can extend the publishing and approval workflows to push content automatically into the Accelerator framework. All of the pages have been designed to look good on any device, so they'll work responsively regardless of laptops or mobile phones or tablets. The framework is currently compatible with SharePoint 2013 on-premise or Office 365. We obviously have a bit of a job to do in sort of in ensuring that when we go and deploy a framework, it's in line with the latest Office 365 changes, in line with their latest roadmap. But effectively, because all of this is based on SharePoint, it becomes very easy to support. It's not like we're having to explain large amounts of code to content editors or administrators in order to deliver this. At the moment, we have not tested it out in a SharePoint 2016 environment, but with the changes that are being made within Office 365, the two will be reasonably similar. We don't anticipate there'll be too many issues. And also, because the framework is already there, because we're sort of deploying this packaged offering, that means it's quite a short timescale to deliver the solution. So once from start to finish, we're talking sort of days and weeks rather than months to deliver an intranet. But obviously, this is just the beginning. It is a starter for 10. So where you take your intranet once the initial framework is deployed, that's entirely up to you. But Ridge will have SharePoint consultants who can help advise on how best to deploy the custom functionality that you want and that is in line with your organizational requirements. So in order to get started with the Intranet Accelerator, or to get started with any of the visual consulting engagements, you just need to contact Visual, contact your engagement manager, your account manager, and we'll arrange a call to discuss the options. So that's everything from me. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat window, or sort of we'll unmute and we can sort of talk about the questions, but we're going to keep the call open until around 11 o'clock. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks for your time there, Mike, and thank you for the participants for spending an hour with us. If there are any questions, as Mike said, please feel free to speak now, pop them in the chat window, or email them over. Right, as we appear to be questionless, we'll call an end there. Thank you all for your time again, and catch up with you in the near future. Thank you.